Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today sitting down to talk about Cyberpunk 2077, and man, am I excited to do so because, ladies and gentlemen, the community is in a great place right now. People are downloading the free trial, seeing what Cyberpunk is all about. Finally, in a proper technical state, they can go, wow, this ain't too bad. And for those of us who have enjoyed Cyberpunk for a while, despite its many technical and content-based issues, we can lower the defense a little bit. Join together as one big, happy gamer family, and I could not be more ecstatic about that because I think there was too much potential in Cyberpunk 2077 for it to be squandered, and I'm happy they didn't give up on it, and they've built something here that can become even more exciting than it already is, because now we don't need to talk about constant bug fixes, patch this, patch that. While there still are technical things to be remedied, it's not nearly as bad as it once was, and we can actually start talking legitimately about content. What can CD Projekt Red add to the game? I'm very excited to get into all of my thoughts on the next-gen update after playing it for a while, as well as highlighting some discoveries that have been made by the Cyberpunk 2077 community. So if you're new here, we've talked about Cyberpunk 2077 for a long while now, but I know a lot of people are joining up. If you're interested in future updates, expansions, any of that, consider subscribing. You're more than welcome here. And now, let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077's next-gen update. So first and foremost, upon firing up the game, I was actually pleasantly surprised by this changelog here that is on the main menu. It greets you right away, highlighting all the significant changes that are in patch 1.5. To me, what this tells me is that they're going to start adding more substantial updates to the game that do have more content that's worth putting on blast. Look, I know they've tried to sneak in content here or there, like in patch 1.3 with the new look for Johnny Silverhand, all of that stuff, but it was never worthy of putting on broadcast. For them to have this framework here says that maybe patch 1.6 and so on and so forth will continue to introduce new content to the game, which is what a lot of us have wanted for a long while, but I do understand why they needed to, fix the game first before adding things on top. But still, I do think this shows that there is a framework that they are now building on top of, finally, with this update. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about was the NCPD, because it didn't get a lot of a focus during the Red stream yesterday. And even in my patch update video, I went, well, there aren't that many changes on that front, so I imagine that'll be in a future update. But in fact, there are some unique city interactions that people were spotting in the community. And over on Reddit, people were sharing videos of the NCPD reacting to civilian shootings, where if a civilian took out their gun and opened fire, the NCPD would take them out, as well as police chases between gangs and the NCPD occurring. So it's a more active city. And that's one thing a lot of people wanted, because it's such an immersive environment. Like, you want to be there, even if it's the darkest, crappiest place in gaming, technically. You still want to live there because it's such a well-realized world on a visual level. You just want that interaction, that activity happening. And now we're starting to see it get to that place finally. And it's funny because the reports were that Cyberpunk 2077 technically should have came out in early 2022. And we're seeing exactly that to a T. Another undocumented change is here on Reddit, that it's more of an RPG, because a YouTuber by the name of One Dragon highlighted some changes underneath the hood, like the maximum number of mod slots you can have across all clothing items was reduced from 20 to 9, or legendary mods now require legendary pieces of clothing to be equipped, and every mod is now tied to a specific category of clothing, such as the Deadeye mod can only be equipped to eyewear gear, and many other stat changes underneath the hood. I wanted to highlight this as well because I already thought that Cyberpunk 2077 was a great role-playing game on the gameplay front. I absolutely have my critiques, a whole video dedicated to it on the story choice and consequence, which I did find lacking. But the gameplay choice and the way you can approach situations, the build options, so many there. And now that they're narrowing that alley a little bit more, great news, I feel, for those who want to replay Cyberpunk like myself, and many have already. Now, let's move into some of my thoughts personally when I fired this up. I just wanted to highlight these community discoveries first and foremost because they weren't things I personally experienced, but I thought were definitely things that need to be spotlighted. Let's talk about the visuals. So I fired this thing up on my 980 Ti, 1080p monitor. This PC of mine, it's a dinosaur, honestly. It's on its last legs. It's 7 years old now, so it's getting to be that time where we will need a replacement at home soon. But I was like, all right, let's see what the old man still got in him. And it was running Cyberpunk still well. And the game, when I fired it up, I went, hey, this looks better than I remember, more detailed environments. Now, of course, for those of you who are going from like PS4 to PS5, it's an immense difference. But even on the level of those of us who have been playing for a while, like the character creator looked much better. Like there was much more detail in the world, in the environments, in the particle effects, the reflections, the character models, the variety of crowd models are all there. And it made it a much better living, breathing world. Again, at a point where the game should have been a long while ago, but it was never possible for it to actually be there. But let's not talk visuals. Let's talk about the thing that we are playing. And I know a lot of you are probably thinking to yourself, well, it's Matty. He's going to go right into the RPG stuff. No. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to talk about driving. The driving in this game is so much better now. If you're new to Cyberpunk 2077 and you don't think much about the driving, good. That's how it should be. For me and many others, driving around on what was effectively a slip and slide was one of the worst things ever. Point A to point B was a dangerous situation, to say the least. Like, I was just constantly flying off the road. I was accidentally doing U-turns when I was trying to just burn it around a corner. Vehicles felt very light, and they didn't necessarily have to feel glued to the ground, but they didn't control or handle well at all. Look, this is coming from someone who's not a racing game aficionado. I just need to go from point A to point B without feeling like I'm going to veer off the road. That's all I ask for. And finally, it's in that state now. And these vehicles have even been improved on a physics front. Like, there was a discovery by the community where there was actually physics for the suspension of a vehicle that was on a high riser. I thought that was awesome to see. It's something that a lot of players aren't going to notice, but it's a cool little world detail that shows they're getting to that point where they can now really tinker a little bit more, and I think that'll only make the game flourish. But shout out to the driving improvements. This was much needed, and it was immediately noticeable that it has been improved. Otherwise, upon firing it up right away, you got to rebuild your character. They reset everyone's perk points. So I'm sitting there going, what was my build again? I knew I had an adoration for quick hacking. I love the ability of causing chaos from a distance, doing a little memory wipe, a little suicide. People going, what's going on? What, who's doing this to us? And I'm over there in the shadows going, yes. But I also checked out the ninjutsu skill tree because that was something that they had changed a little bit. They redesigned some perks there. I was already playing stealthy in the first place. As I mentioned, quick hacking from a distance. So my ninjutsu skill was already by default high because this was the stealth skill tree here. And it was really nice to see the overhauled perk system in a lot of ways because it was like replaying for the first time in many ways, you know, because it had been so long since I built a character that I went, well, what did I even do in the first place? And then you have this liberation to just put your perk points wherever. Granted, my attributes were already assigned and I had a lot of my skills ranked up from how I had played in this original save file, but reorganizing it all, it felt new again, which was really nice. And for those of you, again, who are like me and like to replay these RPGs over time, great news for all of us. One of the most exciting new features in this update, at least for me, were that the fixers were connected to a ton of gigs that you were already completing. But once you finished all the gigs in a region, you would then get a call, hey, I got a reward for you. Go ahead and pick it up. I left it in your stash. So I did all of the gigs for Regina Jones because when I fired up the game, I was at 19 out of 22. I said, let me wrap this up and see what they actually give you. So upon finishing it up, the secret reward that they gave me was Neofiber Cyberware, which increased the mitigation chance by 5% and mitigation strength by 10%. Mitigation is a new stat that has now replaced evasion. So I thought that this was something really nice to see, that there was a proper reward supporting a new feature or a new change rather in the game through this mechanic. And it gave me a reason to go through and start finishing all of the gigs there that I think previously would have been left undone. But I like that they've kind of added a completionist element to all of the world map activities. There's also the new apartments. This to me was okay. I didn't really feel crazy about it. It's good for role playing. Like, okay, let me go back to the Corporal Plaza. That's the one I bought because I had a ton of money to play with. So I said, hey, why not? I'll buy the most expensive one. And going in there, it was cool to see a different environment. It was cool to see like the receptionist at the desk was all dressed up in a suit and all official. Kind of brought that experience to life, like I'm the Corpo now, right? But going in there was the same place, couple of treats in there. You could listen to the record player. You had a nice view. You had a little bed that you could sleep in to pass time. All of it was great for those who love flavor. I like interaction, which there's nothing wrong for those who love flavor. This is perfect for you. But for me, I like when I'm doing the thing that is making me role play effectively, like I'm interacting with something because I'm playing a certain role rather than I'm buying an apartment to pretend in my head I am the corpo, when the route choices in the beginning don't matter, in my opinion, as much. If they were tied to those route decisions, that would be a different story. That's where my mind goes to, like, ooh, this is exciting because this is now accessible only if I picked a certain route because I am a particular character. But for those who do like flavor, this is here. I do think it's cool, but to me, I would like it more if maybe there was customization in here beyond the general makeovers that they did add. But I'm not going to complain because it's great that it's here and I understand its purpose. It's just not something that really jumped off the page to me when I was experiencing it. Being able to customize your character on the fly was awesome because I was reminded again how much I love Cyberpunk's character creator. And this game needs third person yesterday. Some of the characters you can build, some of the armor you can get, so cool. I love my V so much, and I just want to see my character because they look so badass. I would be over the moon if they added a third person mode at some point in time because it's so needed. But for now, we have first person. With first person, we have gunplay. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I did try out some of the new weapons. I could not use the new power assault rifle because of my skill set, but I could use the guillotine, which is the brand new SMG. I really like the little detail when I ran out of ammo and I was aiming in, it said reload in the scope itself, and then I had to pull out and actually do the reloading. Otherwise, my character's not really built for this type of weapon entirely, the power weapons, so I didn't do a ton of damage with it, but it felt good, it controlled well. It was just nice to see something new in my character's hands overall. That's something I will never be complaining about. Now, I wanted to lead all of this with the positive side of things because I think it's important. It's a time to be excited for Cyberpunk. I agree with that mentality entirely, and I think that this does more good than bad as an update. However, I do have to say, okay, and this is not something you all want to hear, but you need to hear it, is for me personally, and I can't imagine I'm the only one, I did experience more bugs in recent memory than in the game in a much older state. I highlighted the bugs in my day one review. I made it very clear it was buggy then, but it was not nearly as buggy as when the game came out with its day one patch and then patch 1.1 and it further broke the game. I never experienced that state, but then coming back to it with its multiple updates, it seemed to get slightly better each step forward. And then with this next gen update, I did see character models like this from the PS4 launch day era where I was like, yo, what is going on here with this one? I gotta say, this was a frequent occurrence. There were also a couple of quest bugs that involved me closing application, reloading, and fortunately I was able to complete them. But just know, there are some kinks in here. There are some things still to be worked out on both a visual and content level, and that's to be expected when they add new content to the game. It's not nearly as busted as it once was. This is an immense improvement, but I couldn't just sit here and go, well, there's so much good here, I'm just going to ignore every little bit of that. No. You still should know about it, and it's because I think a lot of content creators and press outlets and Cyberpunk superfans are going to prop this up as like, the game is fixed, it's perfect, go play it, and it is in a much more playable state. Don't get that twisted at all. But Cyberpunk 2077 is, and probably forever will be, a buggy game. However, it's a game that if you did miss the boat on, it's hard to recommend right now with Horizon and Elden Ring impending, but if you can make the time, or if those games don't interest you, or you're looking to the future where it'll even be in a better technical state, then this is finally the time to play Cyberpunk if you've been waiting. So ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think of Cyberpunk 2077's next gen update. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing your thoughts. Fire away. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.